I'm Lonny Lundsten, and I'm a research technician in the video lab. And one of my roles is to analyze all the video and images that are recorded by the various vehicles that we have. Over the years, I've sort of specialized in animals that live at seamounts or underwater mountains. So these are things like corals and sponges and various echinoderms, but those habitats are largely dominated by corals and sponges. I mean, the thing that I think is really cool about sponges is that their morphology is really, really diverse. Colors can be really kind of out there, like we saw with that yellow Picasso sponge. But really, the body shapes is really what gets me, especially among the carnivorous sponges, the Clatorhizidae. You see things that look like feathers or harps or ping pong balls on a stick. They're just really, really cool. So your typical sponge has a body plan that is like a vase or a cup or a bowl, and it has all these tiny pores, and those pores allow water to filter through its system. So it's creating a current and it's filtering food from the water that flows through its body. So this is a classic hexactinellid. Most of the glass sponges are white, but this one in particular is yellow, so it's very distinct. When we first saw it, we called it the yellow Picasso sponge because it still has that bowl or vase shape that these hexactinellids have, but in this case, it's kind of like a morphed version of that with these rounded edges, and so it looks kind of like a Picasso painting in some regard. So again, this is going to be seamount habitat. Now, here's two different types of hexactinellids. There's the Starocalyptus, these yellow Picasso sponges, and then here's these white Pharea sponges, sort of coexisting in the same type of habitat. Obviously, there's a lot more animals in here, but both of these filter water through their system. And even in shallow water, that's sort of the typical body plan and role that these animals play in the environment is they're filter feeders. They live attached to the seafloor and they filter water through their systems. But there's a group of sponges that is highly adapted to the deep sea, which the deep sea is really a food poor environment, right? There's not a lot of food to eat. And it takes energy to filter water like that through your system. They have small cells that are beating flagella constantly. And so they're creating a current, but that's really expensive energetically to do that. So there's a group of sponges that's developed called the carnivores, the Clatorhizidae. And here's an example of one of them, this species. The common name for this is the harp sponge. So this body plan is totally different from those other sponges. This doesn't filter water through its system. It doesn't use that body plan. It has microscopic spicules. These are the spicules are part of the skeletal structure of the sponge. In this family, those spicules have been modified to form little hooks that ensnare crustacean prey. So water might be flowing past them, or crustaceans might be crawling on them, but they get ensnared in these microscopic hooks and get stuck on the animal, almost like Velcro, and then they get digested in place. So it's a very different body plan than your typical sponge. Your typical sponge attaches to hard rock substrate, and these guys actually use these root-like structures to embed in soft sediment. So that's one of the interesting things about this family, the Clatorhizidae, is that they don't all do this. Some of them form holdfasts, which can attach to hard substrate, but oftentimes when we find them in soft sediment, they actually almost like burrow down into the sediment with these rhizoids. And their body plans are just incredibly beautiful. This particular sponge is really interesting because it gained a lot of interest from both the media and the public. And if you do a search for it, you'll find both images that MBARI has produced, but like all kinds of art pieces that people have made of this animal, which I think is really cool. And I think they're like the spokes animal for the deep sea because they are so highly adapted to that deep sea environment, which again is food poor environment.